Texas goes up to Ann Arbor, Michigan this Saturday, Joe, which was probably and more than arguably going to be the biggest game of week 2. Two massive brands going at it in Texas versus the reigning and defending national champion Michigan Wolverines. Look, I think that there's a lot of intriguing storylines when it comes down to this game. I guess when you look at this, how do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, Michigan had a really rough week 1. A game that you don't want to play out of the gate. Wait, stop. Hold. They had a rough week 1. It's not how you would expect a team that just won a national championship to come out of the gate. But a lot of times, plenty of times, teams will have a sleepwalking, hungover type of a game against a much lesser opponent. So I'm saying this to say I'm not getting all my takeaways from that Fresno State game. But what needs to be taken away is that wholly new offensive line looks like it's still figuring itself out. Davis Warren is not good enough of a passer to elevate that offense. And it's confusing rotating in Alex Orji. I feel like they haven't really still fully decided on who they're going with. I think that they need to pick one guy and move forward with them, and maybe Orji contributes in some sort of a package. Talking about how I think this game is going to play out, I'm leaning Texas. I don't think that this game is going to be heavily lopsided because I think Michigan's defense is so freaking good that they're going to keep this game low scoring. I could totally see this playing out as like a 7 to 10 point win for Texas, which isn't lopsided, but is just a really nice victory. And the final score is like 24-14. I don't feel like this got blowout territory at all written on it, as much as Ohio State fans would love for that and the rest of the college football world would love for Michigan to be burning to the ground right now. Their defense is too good, but inversely, their offense does not have enough to keep up with Texas if they put together a couple of quick drives and a couple of big explosive plays.
Well, a lot of people think that because of what Stallions did on the Netflix documentary. Let's just throw that out there. I'm not giving my own opinion. I'm just saying that's why a lot of them want that to happen. Joe, there's 4 main storylines that I see going into this game. Number 1, can Texas run against Michigan? That defensive front 7 for Michigan is really scary. Now, I should have looked at this before we got in here, but Jaden Blue kind of got nicked up last week against Colorado State. I'm sure he's good to go. I don't know the status of that right now, but he did kind of get beat up a little bit. I need to see Texas being able to establish the running game. Like, we have a lot of expectations for Texas this year, and you're about to go against one of the more elite defenses in the country, regardless of what anybody says. Mason Graham is a dude. They got multiple dudes along that defensive line that are dudes. They have arguably the best corner in the country, who, by the way, Joe, had a pick 6 last week that was 86 yards for a touchdown, and Will Johnson. I think that this game has a part where if Texas can't get a running game going, and Quinn Ewers is having to be your offense, can he finally get over the hump and put the entire team on his back against a defense like this that's going to get them where they want to go? I'm going to throw this out there. I don't think that Quinn Ewers at all played bad last week. But you know what I wanted to see from Quinn? I wanted to see him not make dumb decisions. And the interception that got batted up in the air, that got picked off, was a dumb decision. He's trying to make – it's the same thing every year. He tries to get up in the pocket and make a play, and he makes a dumb decision. You know what I know? Here's what I know. When you do that against a team like Michigan, that kind of stuff can backfire against you. Ask me about the Washington playoff game last year. When you make dumb decisions, defenses like this will make you pay. Now, can Michigan score at all either? Right? Like, I mean, that's the whole part in this that I think that is so intriguing in reference to this game, because, Joe, I don't know if Michigan is going to be able to score either. Now, Dylan Edwards last week, 11 carries, 27 yards. What's going on with that? They did get some really good things from Mullins. He had 15 carries, 92 yards. Look, I thought they did some good things in the running game, but I think you hit the nail on the head here. what's going on with Davis, Warren, and what's up at quarterback with Orji? Now, Orji threw 2 passes last week. 1 went for a touchdown. Now, Davis had some good throws, but he had a bad pick where he was late. So I just look at this and say, Joe, I'm really needing to see what both offenses can do here. The difference is that Texas is just much more established offensively, and it's why I lean them, okay? I lean them because of those wide receivers. Ultimately, they got a lot of explosive playmakers. But I do think that this could be a 3 to 5 point game, to be honest with you.
I think it's going to be a little bit more than that. I don't – look, I understand that, like, you're trying to say that, like, look, Quinn Ewers can't make silly mistakes against that defense.
He can't.
That defense can't just solely win them the game. That defense is one of the best in the country. I'm going to absolutely give its props.
Let's pick Texas.
Texas's defense is still very undervalued. I thought that their secondary showed us a lot of promise for what they could be this year, and that there are more playmakers back there than maybe we thought during this offseason. If Davis Warren's throwing picks against Fresno State, what is going to happen for him against Texas?
Against Colorado State.
Okay. The pick that Davis Warren threw is very different than the dopey decision by Quinn Ewers.
No, it's not. Let me explain to you why it's not. A first-time quarterback being late on a post in double coverage, I don't mind. Like, I don't mind.
Well, but coming into a game like this, it does matter.
Please hold on. I don't mind that he had a late read, but the right read. What I hate when you're making dumb decisions is what Quinn continues to do, Joe. Like, this is a fifth-year guy that's coming in here making the same mistakes over and over again. You're talking about a kid in Davis Warren that went into his first start, and he made a bad decision versus Quinn Ewers, who also has had more playing time than anybody at quarterback, and we're saying that he's not making a worse decision? Get out of here with that.
Wait, no. You love to bring up that he makes the same mistakes over and over again, but he also makes great, huge plays over and over again. This isn't DJU who doesn't do anything for his offense. I don't care that if I have a guy who's trying to do something and he's trying a little bit too hard and he ends up being a little bit too risky in his decision-making and he messes up. Yeah, he shouldn't have thrown that ball. He should have just stepped up in the pocket and scrambled and picked up yards. But instead, he's not paying attention. He's not checking his peripheral, doesn't realize there's a defensive lineman there. Ball gets knocked out of his hand. I'd rather have a guy that's going to take a risk, that's trying to make plays, that I know is going to find playmakers down the field.
They were up 40.
That was earlier. They weren't up 40 when that pick was thrown.
Yeah, probably weren't. But they won 52-0. My point is, Joe, come on. Like, do you not see that? Like, that's a common theme. Like, you're making it seem like that this isn't a common theme.
It happens, but I always he makes mistakes, but I always come back to
theme, yes or no.
I just said yes. I would rather have Quinn Ewers, Cam Ward mistakes than Davis Warren, DJU mistakes. There's a clear separation in the stat lines that they had.
One game of Davis Warren
against Fresno State, he didn't go over 200 yards passing.
Fresno State is better than Colorado State, bud.
That doesn't matter. They're not that far off from one another. They play in the same conference. If they matched up today, that would be a one-score game if they played one another right now.
Okay. Well, he certainly found Colston Loveland, who I want to talk about next a lot. Joe, I got to ask you a serious question. Can Colston Loveland make an impact here? Can they draw up enough to get him the football? He had 8 catches, 80-plus yards, and a touchdown last week. I'm going to be honest. That kid might be the best tight end in the country.
Well, I think that's a given. We had him as our number one tight ends. I mean, that's your de facto guy that you need to go to. But I would throw that back at you by saying he had all that production. I don't think that he's necessarily the game changer in this. It's who the heck are the receivers that are emerging for Michigan. That's why I just have such a lack of confidence and fear of like investing any faith in what Michigan's offense is going to do in Michigan in general, because I know that they've got Golden and Isaiah Bond on Texas. If they need a quick 1-minute drive and they need to go down the field, they can do it.
They're not going down on the field like that over and over again. I mean,
not over and over again. Hold on, I didn't say that.
What you're making it seem like is, hey, if they need a 1-minute score, they can go get it like that. Joe, what defense?
Okay, wait, you're misunderstanding my point. I'm not saying that it's easy and an immediate they can just score at will. I'm saying that they've got big playmakers. So if you need to drop a play and something you need to generate big yards, you have a quarterback who can sling it and you've got receivers who can stretch the field. I don't know what Michigan has. Michigan doesn't have that. Their best receiver's gone. Roman Wilson's in the NFL.
All right. Here's another thing too I want to bring up about this game that I think is very interesting. Colorado State ran for 118 yards on Texas last week. By the way, Michigan also held Fresno State to, what was it? 9 rushing yards.
Okay.
So here's a question that I have. Now, on Monday, you and I, or was it Monday or Tuesday? I forget. On Monday, you and I talked about when teams are stopping any team whatsoever to 10 rushing yards, that's elite. I mean, how big of a difference is it on both fronts on the defensive line, especially in that interior? Joe, that's what I keep coming back to, is that you legitimately have a defense that, Joe, is borderline elite stopping dudes in the run game.
Yes.
What is Texas' biggest weakness?
I don't know. What is it?
It's probably going to be running the football. Like, I mean, if we're being honest with one another, we got to see them establish the running game before we're starting to crown them. And this week is not that week to do that. Joe, I look at them. I know that Blue went 11 for 57, under or just over 5 yards a carry. Jared Gibson 10 carries, 67 yards and a touchdown. Like, Joe, those holes are going to be eaten up. Like, that front seven from Michigan, Joe, we're talking about elite, bringing a lot of guys back, brother. That's okay. I just can't see it being more than could it be a 7-point game because Texas goes down the field and scores late? Yes. I can't question that. What I worry about in this game is, what if that Michigan defense can start generating turnovers? Then or just regular overall stops. That's the thing. You know what also I thought? Let me kick this to you before we go to the next game. You know what this is starting to remind me a little bit of?
What?
Texas, Alabama last year.
In what?
Think about it. Think about it for a second.
So you're saying that Michigan is Texas in this situation?
No, I'm saying Michigan is Bama. Struggling at quarterback.
Yeah.
New staff other than the head man. I mean, I get that it's different. But offense might be anemic. Okay, but very solid defense, very solid corners, very solid up front. That's Bama from a year ago. Okay, and what happened in that game late? What happened in that game late was Alabama's offense couldn't sustain anything. Texas opened it up, and it was we know what happened at the end. That's how I could see it playing out. I just think that Michigan front seven is a little bit better than what Alabama had a year ago. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, I mean, that was literally what I had equated this to when I was doing my notes for this game, where it feels like a signature moment for Texas against a blue blood team that just won a national title, that is going to be a momentum builder for them. And you just highlighted how I think this game plays out. Texas won that game with a good margin. They didn't blow them out, but they had control of that game about midway through the fourth quarter. We felt pretty confident that Texas was going to win. And what helped them, they were struggling to get yards in short area. They were struggling to really get the ground game going, but then they connected over the top. They started taking shots on a secondary that was one of the best in the country. So eventually, this is kind of my whole point, why I have a lot more confidence in Texas, and I really have no idea where to put my attention with Michigan, is that if you have a quarterback who can sling it and receivers who can stretch the field, if things aren't working, eventually you can just say, all right, we're going to start taking shots. We're going to try to take shots. We're going to keep setting things up. If they keep stopping us, we know that we've got one of these plays in the back pocket that we're going to hit them over the top. If there's a team that can do that and can create a little separation, win the game by 10, it's Texas. I think that Michigan's going to be a good team this year. It's just, this is not the type of a game that's good for them, is having to go up against a team that has splash play type of athletes on offense that could create enough separation that it takes too long for you to try and get back into the game because your quarterback situation's unsettled and your starting quarterback, Davis Warren, is inconsistently accurate. This video is sponsored by the online fitness training camp presented by Chris Gates Fitness. When I first started talking about Chris, about partnering with our show, not only was I excited to have a fitness sponsor for our pod, but more importantly, when I found out about how he can help people achieve their goals, I was even more bought in, because when the football season starts, it is so tough to stay on top of things and also to be able to enjoy yourself on Saturdays when it's game day. With Chris Gates Fitness's online training camp, you're going to be able to effectively stay focused, consistent, burn fat, build muscle, and do it with a like-minded community of individuals working towards the same thing. On top of this, you're going to be able to get direct coaching from Chris and the ability to ask him questions with an access to a live Q&A where you can get direct personalized support from Chris himself. Don't wait any longer. If you're trying to get in shape during this fall and you want to be able to do it with the right support system, head on over to chrisgatesfitness.com/training camp or click the link in the description. And you need to do it today because you can get the first month. Personal training is expensive, folks. The first month for only $10 when you use that code RuffinoJoe. Don't wait any longer. Head on over there. BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline, where the game starts.